Welcome back to the Owner Seat podcast. Most founders in wellness believe that if the work is good enough, people will find them. They won't. Being the best kept secret in your market is not humility, it's a growth problem. My guest today has spent over 30 years making sure the right people get seen by the right audience, and she learned the power of it the hard way in her own life. And we're going to talk about that story. Natalie Trice is the founder of Natalie Trice Publicity, a boutique PR agency for experts, founders like you, and brands in health and wellness. She's a chartered PR professional, a 3-time author, and she's worked across global media for 3 decades with names like CNN, the Discovery Channel, and my favorite Cartoon Network, and organizations including the Royal College of Art and the International Menopause Society and the Harley Street Fertility Clinic. But the story that matters most is personal. When Natalie's son was diagnosed with a rare hip condition, there was no support, no community, and no clear care. So she did what she knew how to do. She used PR to build awareness. She wrote Cast Life, A Parent's Guide to Hip Dysplasia, and she founded DDH UK, turning a family crisis into coverage in the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, and the BBC, and into a global network so the next family wouldn't feel as alone as hers did. She calls herself her own best case study, and she's right, and we're going to dig in. Today, she's building. She runs PR school where she teaches founders to tell their own story. 3 books in with a PhD next, she's not slowing down. And what makes this an Owner Seat conversation is that Natalie treats reputation as an asset, something that compounds, drives real business results, and opens doors that outlast the coverage. That's a finance, that's an operator's conversation as much as a PR one. And it's one most operators get wrong. And we're going to chat about it. Natalie, welcome to the Owner Seat podcast.
Wow. Thank you so much. That is quite an introduction. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, you've been through a lot and I can't wait to chat about it. Thank you for carving out the time because I'd like to chat about it all. I was so inspired. Travis, who's been on the podcast in past, which he had an amazing story and so many gems that he dropped. When I asked him, who would you recommend to come on the show? I like these raw stories that, we're all going through our thing, but it's always nice to kind of be in the trenches with others who have either gone through it or are going through it. And he just kept raving about you. You have to talk to Natalie. She has a phenomenal story and a great heart where she's helping so many people. I'm like, I got to have her on. So thank you
Thank you.
for being available and carving out the time. I'm going to jump right into it if you don't mind.
Let's go.
I mentioned, the situation that your family went through. Your son
Mhm.
ended up developing a hip dysplasia diagnosis, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know what it was like. I'd imagine no playbook, right? And I mentioned you use PR and your skill set to build awareness. You wrote Cast Life and you founded DDH, right? You were in all of the publications. Like, walk us through that entire situation. Like, what was it all like?
Mm. It's a great question. And so he's now 17 and
Wow,
loves the gym. He's an amazing young man. I
amazing.
think at the time it's one of those situations, and I've been talking to a potential client this week in a very similar situation where you have a child, you're ready for the sleepless nights, for the nappies, for the crying. You're not ready for a diagnosis. And so although hip dysplasia was in our family, quite typically it's not picked up at birth
Mm,
for various reasons. And so when Lucas was diagnosed, it was kind of like this implosion of, I remember my sister having treatment and that kind of feeling of being just left while her treatment was being carried out, and I was having to replay it with my
mm,
son, with an
yeah.
older son in tow. And my whole thing was that how can you how can I do nothing? So this
Mm,
is second generation, probably third generation. What happens if my sons have a child and they have it and nothing has changed?
right.
And I think even as we were kind of going through all of the tests and all of the palaver of trying, and it's no different in the UK from the States. It's a global issue. And your automatic thing, especially then, no podcasts, the internet,
Mm,
it was there, but it's nothing like it is now. And I was like, okay, well, I'll get the book. There's no book. I'll find the people. There weren't no people because there wasn't the community or the connection. And so
mm,
every time Lucas needed more surgery, I was like, okay, I'll find the book this time, and it still wasn't there. So if it doesn't exist, what do? We create it for ourselves.
wow.
And that's kind of because my career had, as you said, I'd been at Cartoon Network, and I'd had this amazing kind of global career. And all of a sudden, I have a toddler and a baby who is essentially from nipple to toe in casts for months
Wow.
at a time.
My goodness.
So the ability to continue any kind of corporate career in that capacity was was pretty much impossible.
I'm
And
sure.
so
Yeah. I'm just,
you do what you do what you do.
yeah, I got 3 kiddos, so I can only imagine how difficult that must have been and the burden, right? And I say burden meaning the weight of it on your heart, right? It's like
Oh,
you want
yeah.
to just do anything and everything, or even say, just God, do it to me instead, right?
Or
So
or or
so I
just to
mean,
think you have this thing, if it's your appendix, you go in, they take it out, you mend.
mm,
With this, they don't know what they're gonna find because
right,
it's a they you don't know how they're gonna set the cast, you don't know whether it's gonna work, which it often didn't. And so it was a very emotional, stressful, traumatic experience, but
sure.
we learn.
What's interesting is throughout that experience, to your point, right? Although it sounds like it runs in the family. You said, well, let's do something about it. Let's make a massive impact, and you've done that globally, and you've worked with these larger brands, right? Where a lot of the times because of the budgets, right? You can have
Mhm.
these like polished campaigns. We see it everywhere. It's
Yep,
nonstop on TV, on magazines, on what have you, social media.
yep.
What I'm finding though, which is interesting, with a lot of brands nowadays, and God, you're positioned so well, it's like these real raw, authentic, vulnerable stories are actually getting picked up more.
Mhm,
I think people want the behind the scenes. They want to hear and see about the struggle. They don't necessarily want the smooth curves or the polished campaigns. They want edgy,
mhm,
error ridden, like
mhm.
they want it all. And so when it's interesting, you had this personal situation going on within your family, which was so difficult. And you're able to use your skill set to really press this movement.
Yeah.
Like, what made you think like to do that, and how was that journey?
I have an interesting mother who said that she'd met women like me trying to change the world before, and honestly, that was the catalyst. I thought,
Mm,
right, I am going to change the world because I have a busy brain, I am ambitious, and I had this great career behind me, and so it was a
mm,
case of, well, I know how to do this. If we were in hospital, if we were, you know, doing stuff at home or he was asleep, I had this massive still amount of time. Well, what am I going to do with that time? I can sit and cry, or I can use my skills
mhm,
to think there must be someone else like this. I know there are people like this, and how do we reach those people so that they're not alone? And again, I think in hindsight now, and I see it. You can have the Facebook groups, and what we did actually at the beginning, thinking about it now, wasn't radical, but it wasn't the norm.
mm,
I think that's kind of like that at that point, you would go to the doctors and get a leaflet, or you'd be told, "Oh, well, he won't walk, or this won't happen." I was like, "No, that isn't good enough."
yeah, good for
And
you.
I can remember thinking we had to get a second opinion. So we had to pay for a doctor, we had to then pay and go and see another specialist who then took us as a patient through the NHS. Now, what happens with the woman or the person who can't do that? Maybe they can't self-advocate. Maybe something's happening at home and then they can't question. Maybe their culture means that women you just seen and heard. And I was like, I can do this. I know I've read up enough to know that actually what they're
Yeah.
saying to me is rubbish. And this is my
Mm.
son's entire future because it's his mobility that's at stake.
Right.
If I can do this for me, I can do it for other people to show them that you can question, you can ask for second opinions. You you have that right. And for me at the time, that was a real driving force. And your child can't speak for themselves, so you also then on top of it have this mountain of responsibility
Yeah.
to make sure they get the treatment that is the right treatment, and that didn't always go down well. I'm
Oh,
sure I
I
was
bet.
particularly irritating, for some people or some surgeons. We had one particular one when Lucas was about 2, and he
Mm.
was talking to my husband, and I'm literally like, "You need to talk to me. Go Google me." My husband is amazing, but this was kind of like I knew this stuff inside out and back to front.
Mm.
And you've got to then kind of deal with all of these levels yourself. So then why not create a playbook for other people so they will still have the same issues. I know because I see it every day. But
Mm.
if we do not do something to make a change, the change isn't going to happen.
So true. I love that. And I admire the fight. That's amazing. You mentioned, you've posted about this. You're your own best case study. And I thought about that, especially for like the fitness, wellness, longevity owner.
Yeah.
Many of them have these authentic stories, right? These, the things that they've gone through that have made them so passionate to want to go create an impact in their community throughout the country or globally with their brand. But many of
Mhm.
them don't know how to tell it. And so, what,
Yeah.
as you've built up your agency and you've worked with a ton of people throughout the world, how do you squeeze that out of a founder? Like, how do you get them to focus on that authentic storytelling?
For me, one of the things that and I think as a founder and the way that we work is that it's very easy to say to someone, okay, let's get your story ready and we'll get you onto the radio or the TV or whatever it is. But a lot of the time I find it's not so much the ability, because let's face it, if you wanted to, you could put a pitch into AI and create it.
Mm.
It's the fear. It's the fear of visibility and judgment. And
Mhm.
so for me, well, I've done that. I don't do that anymore really with my son because he's older and it's his. But in terms of actually helping businesses or individuals to tell their story, I understand that level of vulnerability. And I've had it. Who does she think she is? She's really
Mm.
irritating. She's everywhere. Well, okay, that's fine. But if that means that I can make a difference,
Exactly.
then and I think that is kind of like, and I'll say to people, look, you go on Instagram and that could be screenshot and shared anywhere. So why not take it to the next level and go into the Times or the Guardian or the BBC? It's not about you. And I think if you can take this, it's not about us.
Mm.
It's about the people that we're trying to reach. So whether or not it's my clients,
Exactly.
whether or not it's you and your work or your clients, the local gym owner, the barista, whoever it is, take yourself out of the equation. Who are you trying to help? Whose life can you make better by feeling a bit uncomfortable? And then once you've done it, you'll be like, oh, I think I'll do it again now. So it's kind of like we create these media monsters because it feels good, and I think if we can get away from this whole idea that don't show off, don't talk about yourself. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know about what it's like in America, but it's certainly a very British thing when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Don't show off, don't brag. It's not that. It's like you have something that could help someone else. So use these larger vehicles like newspapers, like podcasts, like radio to do something about it. And I think that can be a fear factor. So not so much with our corporate clients, but certainly founders, super small businesses, small business owners when they've left the security of corporate as well. So they've got all of these other things coming out. But then I'll also quite often say to them, well, what about your competitor? So if
Mm.
I'm saying to you, do you want to be in the BBC for this? And they're like, oh, it feels a bit too big. How would you feel, if Rosie Smith down the road got in instead of you? Because for me, that is a big that is a kind of big factor for me. I want
Yeah.
it. I want it for me, or I want it for my client. I want it for the charity. And the thought of someone else getting it is enough to kind of spur me on.
It's a
How
little
can we get,
competitive.
yeah, yes. Um, that's it. How much do you want this stuff? And it's almost like you've got to get out of your own way. If you want to be seen, you've got to get out of your own way, because it's not about you.
I love that because you're telling your personal story, but not necessarily for your own self. However, I do think there's always a healing impact there, but it's understanding that your story is what is going to grab attention for those that need your product, service,
Yeah.
experience most.
Yeah.
It reminds me, I was in church the other day. I thought this was so powerful. Our pastor had a QR code on the little screen above, and he said, "This isn't anonymous, but we want to know how the community is doing and put what's really weighing heavy on your heart." And I'll tell you, I'm in this little bubble of a community in Houston, and you look at social media, and everyone seems to have their what together, right? It's everyone smiling,
Yeah.
happy go lucky, white picket fence, and he reads off. I mean, this is hundreds of people in church, and I got so emotional. I'm like, oh my goodness, like the stories that he was reading off. I'm like,
Yeah.
like there's just for what I do, there's so many people I could impact if I can just tell more people like my story and what I do and how it can help. And then there's other people. I mean, I was just thinking about that, like all of these stories and all of this pain, all of this need and help needed. And you're right, like no one will know about you and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to change the world if you don't tell your story.
No.
People don't just because you have AI or the web or social doesn't mean that people go and flock to your brand. All the owners can attest to
Yeah.
that, right? It just doesn't happen overnight. It's a
No.
work in progress.
And I was talking to I was on a workshop. I mean, I've done this for 30 years, but I still joined a workshop yesterday with two journalists, and they said, "Okay, you can have credibility or visibility. You need both.
Mhm.
You can be credible if you're not visible, we're not going to find you." And we then bring in the whole element of AI, and
Right,
that's what people are using to find you as well. So you're like, it's
right.
okay. You can kind of be a bit proud and a bit shy, which is cute, but it's not. Yeah, it's not going to get you found. And
Now,
so
let me ask you this, right?
yeah.
So there are some brands and maybe some that are watching this, listening to this, where they're really good at this. They're really good at putting themselves out there.
Mhm.
But have you found that it almost goes too far? Like, what do you see it sometimes where it's like, hey, I think we're overdoing this and we're getting distracted from, well, what's the return on investment? How is this impacting the business? Where's the attribution? I'd imagine you focus a lot on the measurables too. Like, have you dealt with that where it's some brands are, wait a second, is this the best use of funds, the best use of time?
Because it's an unknown. PR, publicity is an unknown, and again, it's a
Yeah.
conversation that I have often because it's part of the overall funnel. So this idea of, well, if we do this and we go viral, what's going to happen? I did a post on LinkedIn a couple of like last month about being bullied out of a job in corporate.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was like 250,000 views, and has it done anything? No. It's like, it was nice at the moment, but it's all these elements. One thing on its
Mhm.
own doesn't necessarily work. We have to put all of those parts together. So, for example, if I was to do this with you and it came out and I was like, "Oh, that's great, it's gone out," but not do anything with it, I
Mhm.
have to share it on my social media. I need to tell people this week that I've spoken to you. I need to call out travel, all those things. And then it fits with everything else you're doing. I think that the problem there's two things. One, it's kind of salacious headlines. So are you cashing in for a quick win because you can comment on, I don't know, Taylor Swift's meant to be getting married at Madison Square
That's
Garden?
right, yeah. I
Ah,
think it's a decoy, by the way. They're faking us out. It's gonna we'll see.
well, I'm going to Madison Square Garden next week to see Bon Jovi. That's not a
Oh, how
decoy.
fun.
But yes, but so it's kind of like, if she gets married, whatever happens with that wedding, whatever happens, I can bet you that the next day journalists will be looking for, did you get married at a concert venue? Did you wear this particular dress? Can we
Mhm.
have a stylist to talk about her makeup? Why was he wearing pink? Do you think she was pregnant? So that's going to come. The moment that happens, those stories are going to come. Now, how you choose to do that
Mm.
and how you want to comment on it and how much of yourself you want to give away is going to have an impact. So you have to be careful. And it's a little bit like the campaigning. We got to a point with Lucas where I was like, I can't make him into the poster boy for hip dysplasia
Mm.
because he's 7 and yes, he's very cute. But what I could do is then talk about this, the NHS, the
Mhm.
misdiagnosis, the issue of chronic pain, the things that generally people who have hip dysplasia have to deal with, and the comments. How do you parent a child with a rare condition? How do you then do these other things? Or I can talk about how to write a book. I'm not specifically talking about my son, I'm talking about the wider picture and why people with a condition, with disabilities, with stress cope. And so the return on investment with PR isn't necessarily going to be an instant sale.
Mm.
It's the credibility. So
Yeah.
there's one thing that if I went onto social media, and I'm not the best PR person in the world, but say I was to go on and be like, I'm the best person and I do this, we're talking about ourselves. So we're using social media to talk about what we do, who we are, and how we do it.
Mhm.
If we are then, so you, with your very generous introduction, talked about my career and what I've done, that's PR
Mm.
because that's someone else's interpretation of who I am and what I do. And you're very kindly giving me your audience because you're saying she's good enough.
Mm.
It's a very different mechanic and it's obviously more complex than that. But PR is part of the function, it's not all of it. And so that return on investment, does that mean that if you're a gym owner and you want more people to come into your gym to do reformer Pilates, for example, and then you need to be seen in the right places in Fit and Well magazine or in Parade. This is one of my clients I'm actually talking about. So The Guardian, those places, and when that person's seen on a consistent basis in someone else's space, as in a different platform from their own, that brings together the credibility and the visibility that people will go, okay, they are who they say they are. And I think this is one of the things we also have this kind of issue with journalists. And I had an example today. So someone can work with us and I can say, I will do everything I can to put you in the inboxes of the right people. I cannot climb into that inbox, knock on the screen and go, you need to cover this client and I want you to talk about her like this, this, and this. I want this headline, this image, this.
Right.
That is not PR, that is advertising.
Mm.
It doesn't always happen, but I had a client, I think it was Business Insider, a couple months ago. I send hundreds of pitches a week. Between me and my team, we send a lot of pitches. Do they all work? No. Is that because they're wrong? No, it's because the competition is massive and
Mm.
people want the success, like I've already
Yeah.
said. So there's one particular journalist, I'd forgotten I'd sent the pitch. She came back and she was like, I'm so sorry. I couldn't use you for this, but I could use them for this and this. It still works, but it's not always a quick win.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like a cake. You can put all the ingredients together. Whether you get the cherry at the end, it depends. But it doesn't mean that the journalist doesn't know you exist.
Well, and it seems like it's evolving, right? I feel like the market, the consumer it's shifted from being loyal to a brand and wanting to be loyal to who's running the show, right? Who is the
Mhm,
owner? Who is the
mhm,
founder? And this personal branding piece over the last couple of years, definitely right now, it seems to be thriving or seems to be the big focus where I feel like PR is even that much more valuable. But you talk about it, you post about it, it's the intangible asset, right? That lifts up value. I'm in a lot of these financial pitches to investors, private equity, and all of that. And it's interesting. I can have all the financial slides. I mean, it can be tidied up, tight, it looks good.
mhm,
And I always get feedback, look, like it's not about the deck and about, yes, the vision and the mission and how you're gonna, financially get there. Of course, we want to make a return. I want to learn more about you, founder, right? They're chatting to the founder or the owner.
mhm.
They're investing in those people and
Yeah,
people that are watching this.
yeah.
And so if they don't have that credibility or have that story to tell, or at least prep to tell, it's a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's very awkward. I'm like, oh no, we're about to lose this one. how do you get that out? Like, how should a founder think about building their authority and understanding, like, you're right, it doesn't happen overnight, but this is compounding. And it's
Hmm.
also great content to redistribute, cut up, and,
Right.
even to investors nowadays, I'll shoot up little clips of my podcast with certain clients that I
Hmm.
have, and I'll send it over, and they love it because it's just a different way to understand who is this person that I might be investing 10 mil in.
Right. So my biggest belief is, honesty, transparency, and trust. So
Mm,
again, if you're saying one thing in your deck, but someone goes and looks and finds, I don't know, some dirt on you, or you're not who you really say you are, or actually if they Google the kind of environment or your culture at work and this stuff isn't working, people can find out about you. So they're soon going to know, aren't they? We always say, so I say to Chloe, who works with me, our niche, health and wellness, but actually, are they nice people?
mhm,
Are they honest? Are they
mm,
easy to work for? Are they easy to work with? Can we be part of their team? Do they see the value of what we're doing? Because it isn't tangible. It's not, it's not a pair of Nikes. It's not a sweater. It is this thing. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? You would know as an investor, what kind of people are we looking for? Because we don't
yeah,
just want the shiny deck. And I learned that very early in my career in a corporate agency, and we were pitching for Orange, which was the big phone network. And the senior team were talking about all this stuff and these stunts. And I was like a year into my career. And I thought, if they win this account, I'm literally never going to go home before midnight. Sure enough, because they got the client in, they promised the world, they disappeared for their fancy lunches, and we were left sweatshopping it to get the results. So
yeah,
again, you've got to, and I'm not keen on the word authentic, but
mm,
are you actually living and breathing your business as you? Because if you're just trying to get the quick wins, whether that's the funding, whether it's the coverage, whether it's the journalist, and they're savvy as well, it's how you put yourself forward to the world. And instinctively, we know that as business people, as human beings, as parents, you spot something, you literally be like, and I've been caught many times, and I think, oh no, but go for the money or go for the prestige, and it always backfires.
I'm curious, and I want to get a little more granular on just some best practices that you learned,
Hmm.
because I mean, you've been everywhere from This Morning to prime time on U.S. television, right? And you understand the media landscape, and I'm curious, what separates the founders who convert that visibility into business results? Like, how do you make sure it's not this like one and done, get the hit, nothing happens from any of it? And granted, it doesn't happen overnight, but how do you make sure that something does happen, that it does convert into awareness that leads
Hmm.
to conversion?
Hmm.
What are some of the things that founders can do to make that happen?
Well, I think as you find in your work, this is a marathon. It is not a
Mhm.
sprint. And I think people stop too soon. Okay, we do 3 months and we've not got anything. It's a long. I mean, my hip stuff. This is 17 years and it's still going to a certain extent
Yeah.
because. So I'll use me as the case study. So there's me, a mum on a mission with a baby. All these other people around the world were doing these things. So in September, I'll be one of the keynote speakers at an orthopedic pediatric global conference in Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
That's me as a mum on a
Mm,
mission for change. Am I being paid? No, but it is part of a very long-term legacy of change. 17 years. That wasn't just that one piece I did in our local paper when we first got the local school to make some cakes and sell them for hips or
mm,
whatever it was. That was also getting a Paralympian swimmer to walk a mile around our school for healthy hips and
yeah.
then being on the BBC. And then it was a case of launching a book the night before he had a major operation and then having to go and do that. It is a long game. And I think that, yes, there's a finite amount. And remember, I've done all of this on zero budget. I didn't have
Yeah.
any budget for any of this. Kind of like slightly the goodwill of my my husband, because I couldn't work. I couldn't work at the
Yeah.
time. Remote working wasn't a thing. So it's very different, and it is sheer. it's just sheer hard work, determination, and have you got that, especially as a founder,
Mm.
have you got that drive in your soul? Because
So how
often
do you
some
so
days yeah.
I wanted to hit on that. I love that you mentioned, like, look, and you bootstrapped this, right? You didn't
Yeah.
have a budget.
No?
And I feel like a lot of people out there listening are probably thinking, well, I can't get with a journalist. I can't do PR. We don't have the budget for it. So, what are some of the things that owners, founders can do? Like, how do they get noticed? I've always wondered about this. Like, how do you
Okay.
get noticed by a journalist? How do you even reach out? Like, what do you do to get this process started? Because many probably don't even have like a PR or marketing
Yeah.
team, right? That's maybe it's the founder right now. They have their marketing hat on. How did
Right.
they go? Like, what would be the first couple of steps to just to go do this?
You can get a lot of stuff for free. So we have a Christmas in July free challenge coming up. That's costs you nothing but your time.
Mm,
You can read about it. This is the thing that I would say to get started. First of all, just make sure that your house is in order.
mm,
So, does your website, if a journalist was to go onto your website, does it clearly say who you are and what you do? Because that is the thing. When someone says your name, they need to think of your thing. And when they think of the thing, they think of you. So for me, for a long time, anyone's kid, dad, mum, budgie, rabbit, dog, cat had hip dysplasia or needed it, I was the person. And I
mhm,
still get it now. Oh, Frankie has got something wrong with his hip. What do you think? So I did such a good job that that automatic association was made. You need to do that for you. So if it's Pilates, they say Nikki. If it's nutrition, they say Jonathan. If they say your thing, your name comes up in conversation.
mhm.
You have to make sure that before you even, I would say, contact a journalist, just is your online presence saying that thing? Because if you then pitch a journalist and say, "Oh yeah, we've got 100 people in our business, and I can talk about bringing in a new CEO," and they look and they're like, "Well, there's 6 of you." That's not going to work. And
Yeah,
I know it sounds basic, but it's not. So get that done first and then think about where do you need to be seen? Not where you want to be seen, where do you need to be seen? And when I say that, this is perfect for me because your audience are health and wellness experts.
that's right.
So this podcast, perfect. I'll be in PR Week. Is it perfect for me in terms of attracting clients? No, but is it good for me as a micro agency that's building at scale? Yes, it is because it puts me in the same conversation as the big players.
Mm,
So there's that kind of element and thinking about, do you need to be in Good Housekeeping? Do you need to be in, I don't know, GQ? Is it the Wall Street Journal? Where do you, and then have that. And if you set your mind and think, I've got no time, maybe you have my book or you've read a couple of articles somewhere, but I really want to land Forbes, have that as your aim. But you've got to do something because if you do nothing, you'll get nothing. But I think it's also that thing of like, and the journalists are everywhere. There's a lot of journalists on LinkedIn. So again, say you want to be in Wall Street Journal, I would go to LinkedIn, I would put in a search for Wall Street Journal, I would
mm.
follow them. That will then automatically give you ideas for journalists. You get so much at the moment. And I think there's also something that I have noticed is there's a lot of kind of negativity. Everyone's losing their job. This is terrible. They only talk about these things. Actually, if you pick through LinkedIn, yes, some journalists are being laid off. Yes, it's an evolving landscape, but I must see
Mm,
2, 3, 4 journalists saying, delighted to say I'm now working on, I think today there was a New York Times, there was a Business Insider, there was also a Washington Post. Connect with those journalists.
yeah,
Congratulate them. Conf you know, you can't necessarily, unless you get very lucky, and we do, just go into a journalist inbox and say, "Hey, do you wanna write about me?" That's not what we're doing. It is a lot
yeah.
about relationships, but it's not, I don't want that to put people off because last week I had a client and on the Monday I didn't have an amazing journalist at GQ that put a kiss after her name, and by Wednesday I did because I gave her the right expert at the right time, quickly, with images, and that's a new contact for me. So we're forever building.
I love that. I love that too. Forever building. And it is about the relationships. I'll tell you, I could relate with that on reaching out and following. Earlier in my career, I got connected with CFO.com. and there's so many amazing people out there. And it's when you build a relationship and you just never know. There's a topic that comes up or they're chatting about in their meeting rooms. Like, you know what? Let me go ask Albert about that because he chats a lot about that. And because we've developed this relationship, we've had amazing lunches, or, I'll send nice little like Starbucks gift cards, like just human to human interaction, like I would with my own like team members, right,
Yeah.
at work. And it's been nice. And granted, yeah, of course, I'm getting some type of return on exposure, but then also you're just helping them out. They have a job too that they're trying to do
Mhm.
great at,
Mhm.
and they want, story, or they want information, they want data.
Yep.
Recently got approached by Athletech News. They're like, "We like how you write. Can you do some op-eds?" And I said, "Only if I could be edgy." And they're like, "Sure." It's like,
Yeah.
"Great." Because I wanna spread more. I wanna help more founders and owners in the wellness and fitness space around financial literacy, right? So that
Okay.
we
Yep.
have more studios that thrive and more families that can build wealth. That's
Mhm.
my big piece, but you're right, it's just, and by the way, that's been years and years of a relationship, right? And I wasn't even looking for that, but the fact that, I was looking back the other day when this all happened, and I said, it's because when you treat people right, they'll think about you when some of these opportunities come up, and I think
And
that's
that's
part
the
of
thing
all
I
of
was
this too.
saying, wasn't it? When you said, "Oh, I send them a Starbucks gift or I do this,"
Yeah.
that's because that's you. That's you.
Mm,
That's your, that's the essence of you. It's the kind of person you are. You're not doing it to get business,
mhm.
but because you're being you, you will get business.
Yeah,
And so I don't know how you overcome that if you're not a genuinely nice, kind person.
right.
That's a whole different conversation. But yes, that is the thing. And so I think that it is, you can't give up at the first hurdle.
So I'm curious because you've worked with some major brands, right? I mentioned it at the top: CNN, Discovery, Cartoon Network,
Hmm.
right? I think I had in my notes that I was reading, I was looking at your post, but Tom and Jerry launches on Red Square, James Cameron premieres. Like, what did all of that teach you now that you built you built your agency and you're helping wellness founders, fitness founders? Like, how can you translate a lot of what you learned to help some of these small business owners and even some of these larger franchise or wellness and fitness brands?
I think first of all, I don't think dancing on tabletops with celebrities, and I mean it was a lot of fun, and I don't think I really appreciated that at the time.
Mm,
My elder son, he's nearly 20, and he said to me, "Mum, you're so lucky you grew up in the golden age." And and it's so true, but I think that I you just learn so much, you soak it up. You take that kind of very I don't know, those very raw experiences of watching, I don't know, 7-Eleven in London. I was working at CNN, and I was late for work and the building was in lockdown.
mm,
You're kind of living history at that time
yeah.
and putting into perspective all of those things. I think that's important. And you see those brands, you see those big names, you see like events on top of the big hotel in Barcelona, which was, all of this incredible thing. How do we then capture that and then bring it forward also for the next generation? So I'm very passionate about that as well because um, we want, I don't think you'll go back to that time where we had what we had then, which I think is a massive shame. But the world changes and AI's come along. So I've kind of taken all of those things. I've thought about the mentors who were so helpful. Like my first boss, actually, the first PR job I had, it was a temp in a big London agency. And I'd been living in Japan and I came back and I needed a job.
Mhm.
They're like, all you've got to do is answer the phone. I could not answer and transfer calls. I was absolutely just rubbish. And they said to me, can you write? And I'd done an art history degree and I'd just been teaching English in Tokyo and I could write. So they essentially put me in the basement and got me to write press releases. That
Wow.
that's how I got my job. But my first
Yeah.
boss, Althea, who was amazing, and she was like, "This is," and the first one of the first clients was a boiler company. So you imagine like kitchen boilers. She was like,
Yeah.
"The bread and butter is the trade press. How do you get them into?" I think it was something like Elle magazine. It's like, I don't know. It's a boiler. Go and find a way then. Well, how do you get those magazines into high-end consumer press, if you want a beautiful boiler that makes your kitchen look like a celebrity home, you need Vaillant. That's
Hmm.
how you get that there, and you do something the client doesn't expect. And I think for me, that's very much a case of flatten the press, democratize those tiers that come along quite often. Where does your voice belong, and how do we get it there? And I think she taught me something very fundamentally, and it didn't matter whether it was Robbie Williams or Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
any of those people. Where do they need to be seen for credibility and visibility? And that's what I've taken through, pictures this morning. I saw something for the BBC and it was about family run business. And I was like, really need to have a wee, but I've got to get this pitch out first because I want to be the first and I want that piece of coverage. So it's that thing. It is a fast world.
Yeah.
And while I have the chance to get people where I know they belong, I will do it.
Speaking of fast, I mean, the marketing and PR landscape, I mean, even media, I look, it's just all changing.
Hmm.
And I see even over the last couple of years that trust in media and even influencers has changed a bit. Like I see it this year where it's like, wow, it's people are saying, and I think it's the AI piece too, where people
Yeah.
are like, do we trust this? Is this
Yeah.
real? I really appreciate some of the symbols. Like I'll see it on LinkedIn. There's like this little symbol that says CR. It's like, it's just nice to know, like, okay, what I'm
Yeah.
looking at is AI because I could see that getting very dangerous.
Hmm.
Um, but what are your thoughts on that? Like, where should a lot of these founders and these brands be betting on? Is it AI? Like, I personally love, I can't believe what Google VO can do with a static image and turn it into a video that looks very realistic. It's
Hmm.
actually a little scary to me
Hmm.
with a lot of these deep fakes out there and all of that. Like, how would you advise a founder use some of this technology and pay attention to the trends, but also still staying real, still staying to who they are, what their values are.
Yeah, I think it's very, I think it's very interesting, and I think where this is where the kind of rookie mistakes come along.
Mhm,
So you can
mhm.
pitch yourself, but I also know things like, certain platforms that we use, they have an AI tracker. So if someone's writing and I put them through, I'll check with our stuff as well sometimes. They can see whether someone's written everything is just AI. And
Yeah.
again, I think people are fed up of it. You read a post
You
and you're
see
like,
it all over
ah,
LinkedIn.
it's the tiny sentence, and I'm just like, and I'm like, okay, this is fine, but that's not authentic. So first of all, you
Right.
have to do that. Journalists are becoming much more not regulated, but they're saying, have you got certificates? So I had a financial client and we had a lot of press success for her. She was amazing. And one journalist, I think it was NASDAQ, and they came back to us and they said, have you got her? I need physical photographs of her certificates. And her assistant, and this woman was in her 60s,
Yeah.
very, very experienced, very well regarded in the financial world. And they were like, we've got to have them because deep fakes, AI generated slop, as my sons would say,
So,
it's a
love that.
tool, isn't it? Yeah, they're like, Mum, don't use that. Although
Yeah.
ironically, my sons are on holiday with my husband at the moment. And my eldest one, I sent him a message last night and it literally said, Fable is back. And he just did a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, "What's Fable? Is it her friend?" I'm like, you don't need to worry about this stuff. It's absolutely you don't worry about this." But
Yeah, the Pentagon and all the governments, they said, "All right, you can bring it
clever.
back."
It's clever to a point,
Yeah.
because I think that you do not want to sound like everybody else. And at the
Mm,
moment, everyone is sounding like everybody else to a certain degree. And that's
yeah.
where your story, your authenticity comes up, having some
Mhm.
kind of what makes you different? What makes me different is I've lived and breathed the trauma and then used it to create something.
Yeah.
I'm not a suit sitting behind a desk counting cash as a big agency. I'm still have the passion to get that thing heard, but you can why would you not use it? It's great for
Mm,
research. It's great for helping put proposals together. I used to plan my Sex and the City type itinerary for my trip to New York with it.
yeah.
Was it
Love
perfect?
it.
No. I was like, "I don't think this is right." It's like anything. If you put the wrong fuel in your car, it's gonna break.
Mhm.
You know, if you put salt rather than sugar in a cake, it's gonna taste terrible. It's the same thing, but use it for what it's helpful with, but it's not the finished product. So it's like if you were writing if you were doing a deck for a big investor, and clearly you've got emojis everywhere and ticks instead of the simple
Mhm.
things. And sometimes I think it it's not lazy, it's not knowing. You've got to be able to educate yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So all of these tools, use them, but be aware that it might backfire.
Yeah, that's a good point. I remember having a mentor. God, I need to reach out to him. It's been a little while, but he would say, "Stay relevant." And it was I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" He's like, "Whether it's with your brand or even in your career,
Hmm.
right? Obviously, within integrity and within your values and all of that, stay relevant.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, learn, right? Learn,
Yeah.
upskill is a good way to stay relevant and showcase like what you can do now.
Yep.
And God, I look at all of the things that you're doing and I'm like, oh my goodness, you are everywhere. It's amazing. 3 books in, you founded a charity, a magazine, you're heading into a PhD. I mean, your agency is thriving. There's so much amazing things going on. How would you recommend to the founder listening, how can they stay relevant? Many will say, I don't know if I could write, I can't write a book or be an author, but like what are the top 3 things that you would advise anyone listening? You got to do these 3 things and just stay consistent at it. What would those
Mm.
be?
Well, if it was one of your fitness clients saying balance, I'm like, I'm not sure that. I mean, burnout is real, isn't it? Let's face it.
Mm,
It's a, but I think it's not looking at what other people's balance is. I have a very busy brain. I don't slow down, which can be to my detriment, but I know that I can work better at midnight than I can at 9 a.m. So
yeah,
it's knowing yourself, I think
I
is
can
is
relate with
really,
that.
really important. I think that also, what is the next goal? And and I've worked quite hard on this one because I have a lot of ideas. So like you mentioned the magazine, and that was an idea that was like not quite, and the PhD, that's like the passion project, and I will do that. My PhD is about Emily in Paris. So that is a
Oh,
whole.
yeah. My wife loves that show. I'll watch it every now and then too.
Yeah, it's about, it's the feminization paradox in the PR world. So
Mm,
that's a whole different, but I think it's the goals. So I had a very my dad died a couple of years ago, and I'd had to
I'm
again
sorry.
put my career on hold because he was
Yeah.
very sick. So it's like the hips all over again to an extent, but Alzheimer's. So the
Oh,
business kind of wound down a lot, and my motivation for getting it back. I went to an event in Los Angeles. I think I might have mentioned this to you. I went to a Jack Canfield event in Los
that's
Angeles.
right. Yeah.
And they're like, "What's the vision? What's the vision? You've got to have something to work for towards." And I was like, "Okay, well, a Porsche. I want a Porsche." And I'm like, "Okay." Took me 18 months. Dolly is sitting in the drive.
I love it.
And
Golly.
that was my. It wasn't that. It was like, this is what all of this is going towards. So with the hips, it was like the change. That was that particular thing. Now, there's always what's driving you for the next thing, because on those days where you just think, oh, it would be easier to get a job, what is that motivating factor? So have that drive. Find the balance that is your balance. That I think is important. So I love hot yoga. So
Mm.
that is my thing, because although I don't like the heat, I like doing hot yoga. Don't ask, but it's a time I can't have my phone, no one can contact me. There's
Right.
nothing other than that. And the other thing that I would say, stop the comparison.
Mm.
Because you were saying before about
It's
church, and
tough.
those people sitting in church, and I bet everything, "Oh, it looks great, and
Right.
this is great, and the kids are great, and that thing, yeah, but he's having an affair, and that kid's just had a
Mm.
diagnosis for this, and I'm about to lose my job." We look at surface level stuff,
Yeah.
and we assume because the glossy pictures say they've got it all, we think that we're failing. And I think if you can, and it's hard, it is hard. It is very hard. Um, but stop comparing, because are you running a better race than you did yesterday?
Mm,
Some days it's going to be slower, some days it's going to be faster, but it doesn't matter what Kath is doing or Kevin's doing, or that thing. And I think social media, and I feel for the younger generations because I didn't grow up with it, but that I think that has a lot of impact on founders' drive, mental health,
yeah.
success, because you just don't know.
God, such good gems there. Thank you for those best practices. Well, this has been
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank you for sharing some of your personal story, I mean, all of it, your professional side of things, sharing best practices with us. This was not a finance conversation today. This is why I also wanted you on, is a large part of how you build a business, your franchise system or studio or longevity clinic, is making sure that you get your story out there so you can
Mhm.
impact more people. I've learned that about our industry is we truly do believe in wanting to change lives, and a part of that is investing time, energy, and some money
Yep.
into spreading the word. So, how can people learn more about you, Natalie? Learn more about your agency? I highly recommend they get connected with you. How can they learn
Okay.
more?
Well, I'm just going to say Google me.
I like it.
That is the or ask chat, but
Now it's
we're having
Gemini, right? Google and Gemini
I
are like hand in hand.
and I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. Uh, we're having a new website built at the moment. So, but yes,
Excellent.
there's not, I don't believe there's many Natalie Trices in the world, which I think my husband is quite glad about. One of us is enough. Just
I
one of
love it.
us.
There's only
Thank you
one
for
of you.
having
It's
me.
great.
It's been
Oh, such a
amazing.
pleasure. Such a
Thank you.
pleasure. And if you're a fitness, wellness, or longevity operator, franchisor, franchisee who does want to spend a little bit more time after you get your marketing in, or maybe you want to know the ROI on it from the funding, reach out to me for any CFO type level clarity, financial modeling, capital raise prep, private equity readiness, unit economics. Connect with me on LinkedIn as well, and or go to my AI CFO. You could ask him or me any question that you want at strategointel.com. This has been another episode of the Owner C podcast. As always, I'm your host, Albert Ramos. And if this is your first time tuning in, all episodes drop every Monday and Friday at 8 a.m. Central. Natalie, thank you so much. Such a pleasure. All right, see
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.